Hi everyone, welcome to Research Chapter video series. This is going to be our seventh video of this chapter series. So far we have covered how to choose a research topic, then we talked about how to do the research introduction, literature review chapter, and then we talked about the questionnaire part, and then we followed the methodology chapter. In the previous video we have covered how to do a pilot survey with basics. So these are all basics of research chapters, and also remember that we are doing this research based on the quantitative study. So now in this video we are going to talk about the data analysis and discussion. So that's basically the final part of the research just before the conclusion and recommendation. So we will go and discuss. Okay, so under data analysis and discussion, I'm going to focus on four separated sections. So here are the first two: presentation of data and SPSS testing results. So the first one is presentation of data. This is pretty basic. Basically, you have to focus on the data that you have gathered or collected from your sample, from the population, right? So here you could use surveys, interviews, or experiment. That depends on your research. So whatever the collection of data, so whatever the information that you found, you need to present. You are not analyzing it yet, you are just presenting it, right? So in this part you have to make illustration. It could be pie charts, yeah, maybe bar charts, or any form of visual aids you can use. However, you need to go through all these individual questions, or maybe you can even talk about few questions at once. That depends on your university and the guideline. So you need to present this data, and you need to descriptively talk about these details. Okay, as per this, for the first question, these are the results that you found. So 50% of this answer, 30% of this answer, and likewise you need to explain this illustration of yours. So illustrations are basically the data that you have received through those questionnaire, right? In our case, it was the survey or the questionnaire. So these are the illustration of those data that you have gathered, right? So I have told you, out of the sample, our sample size was 100, right? So maybe, so we fix 1 week. Okay, I'm going to wait for 1 week and collect all these data, right? So probably, so usually you will not get all these 100 as responses, because you will end up around 70 to 80% of the results. So you don't have to worry about that thing. Just because you have received 70 does not mean that you need to send more sample to your population, meaning you have to increase 130. No, you don't do that. So because your original sample size was 100, this was mentioned in your previous sections, previous chapters in your research. Therefore, if this amount is credible, like 70% is okay. If it's higher than 50%, of course you can go with this percentage. So make sure you don't increase your sample size just because you have not received the exact number of your sample size, right? That's a small tip that I wanted to mention. Yeah, so based on these 70% results, you have to illustrate all this information and discuss slightly under each and individual questions, right? So surveys, interviews, experiments, when you do illustrate and you discuss, okay, this is the percentage I have received for this, and this is the other percentage, right? Right, that's the first part. The second part, SPSS testing results. Of course, in our video we focus a bit of the SPSS testing as well. Maybe in your university you might use a different tool, or maybe you don't use SPSS at all. That's okay. So if you're using SPSS, there are many tests that you can do to analyze your data. So here I have mentioned few tests like correlation, descriptive analysis, interpretation. I'm not going to talk deep about this test, because this is like a different subject. So here these are like, you remember, these are like different kind of tests to analyze your data. So this, here you are presenting data, here you are analyzing now. Okay, here you analyze correlation between your attributes, right? So this and attributes, and also the dependent variable. Descriptive analysis also, like that is also based on your results. Interpretation is very important. Interpretation as in how you interpret data, whatever the data that you have found, and you need to discuss and analyze it, analyze and discuss, right? So that is what we call interpretation. This is also very important if you want to achieve a higher grade. So whatever the testing that you do, whatever the tools that you're using, you need to do these interpretations. This word is very important, right? So these are one of the few examples of SPSS testing. So like I always say, that is also always depending on your university guideline. Your university might say, okay, you can do these SPSS, but these are the tests that you need to follow, right? So you do those tests. You in those also you can illustrate this data and interpret. You need to discuss. Here you are just updating your illustration and talking about those result that you have found in a descriptive manner. Here you are a bit digging deep, like analyzing things. So these are the first two areas that needed to focus. We will go and talk about the other two as well. Okay, under this chapter, this is the third and most important part where you have to discuss your findings. So what can you do here? So as you can see, I have written link to your literature. Now the data that you have collected, you need to discuss by linking those data to your literature. And you need to compare. And you need to tell what did you unexpectedly found, right? So what are the unusual things that you have found? Are they like aligning with the literature that you have discussed in your second chapter, or like in your question and the rationale that you have linked? So you have to compare and contrast. So literature plus your data findings. There could be similarities, there could be contradiction. That doesn't matter. You need to discuss whatever the results that are there. You need to discuss linking to your literature, and you need to compare, and you need to tell what's unexpected. So these literature or these authors have said this, but as for the data findings, it is like contradicting. So suppose that the best example is, I will tell you that in your literature review, you have put a citation in 1970 for the 1970. Let's say. So in this part, he has said it's always better to use newspapers as the advertising or marketing tools, right? So in 1970, of course, that's a very trending concept in terms of marketing. Newspapers are like very popular in those days. Now, the people who are like answering to your questions will not agree to this, because now the environment or the business have evolved in many different ways, right? So we are in the technological era. So now we are moving to social media and AI during last couple of so the recent development of this AI. So that's trending, right? So of course the sample would not agree to newspaper article. So now this is something that you can mention as contradicting, right? So of course that makes sense. You can even justify saying, okay, of course that is because now these are outdated, right? So that's one of the examples that I wanted to highlight to explain this. So you have to link to the literature, and you need to compare and do the discussion. You don't have to be like, okay, it has to be like this, it has to be like that. You don't have to worry about that. Whatever the results that you have found, whatever the literature that you have discussed, you need to link and discuss, compare. Okay, there could be good things, there could be bad things, there could be unexpected results. That's okay, because you're not the one who has answer to these questions, right? So that is the population and the sample that you have collected data from. So based on those results, you need to discuss whatever the information that you have collected. So that is about the discussion. Be more focused. Use pluses and minuses, pros and cons. Don't weigh on one side. Okay. Don't just try to be biased. Just say whatever the information that you have found in an average way, right? Pluses and risk, negative, everything, right? So that's your core part of this chapter discussion. Focus it more. And of course, at last, summary and synthesis of key findings. Summary and synthesis pretty basic. So in synthesizing, you need to analyze things and summarize. So summary and synthesis are slightly different. A synthesis like advanced version of the summary. I have taught you about this synthesis as well in previous video. Synthesis more like an analysis, so, right? So analyzing and summarizing is what you have to do in here. So I have given a few examples, common patterns you can highlight, themes, what are the themes that you have found out, and what are the gaps you have seen, you have noticed based on this data or the literature. You can refer to literature plus both data, right? You don't have to focus only on the primary data, which is your collection of the data from this sample, right? So then contradiction, just like I said, process and minus. Okay, these are not um, connecting as you expected. However, that is you have to mention the justification for that as well. And unusual results. That's okay. It's totally fair for you to update unusual results, unexpected results, contradictions, gaps, everything. That is how you make this project as a critical project. So when you do this, you talk about the negative side, contradiction, unusual results, and if you can justify also, you can go for a higher grade. So that's the importance of this synthesis and discussion, right? Comparing and everything is very important because it should have a your this chapter is also have a should have a rationale from previous chapters. This is not a very new chapter. This is also part of the final project where you have to refer to literature and everything that you have already completed in previous chapters as well. So everything has a flow and connection to each and every chapter. So make sure that flow is maintained properly. Again, at last, I just want to tell you. So whatever I'm like trying to highlight and update you guys, make sure you follow your university guideline. The topics and some of the things, the SPSS and other things could be slightly different to your study. So make sure that you follow your university guideline. I'm just focusing on the basics of research topic. We are focusing on the quantitative study as well. Maybe we are doing qualitative. Things are like slightly different when it comes to your university. So make sure you follow your criteria, follow your guideline, and those are like sufficiently updated. And make sure you proofread and submit. So we will see you in the next video, which is probably going to be a conclusion and recommendation for the final chapter. So we'll see you in the next video.